Most people assume that when someone interrupts them, it means they're being disrespected or not valued. But the reality is more nuanced and more revealing about human behavior, because interruption is not just a rude habit. It's a signal about attention, dominance, urgency, and sometimes even insecurity. And once you understand what's actually happening beneath the surface, you stop taking it personally and start seeing it as feedback about the signals you're sending and the dynamics of the interaction. Because in most conversations there is an unspoken negotiation happening, a subtle exchange of control over who holds the floor, who leads the direction, and who gets listened to. And people don't consciously think about this, but their brains are constantly tracking it. And when someone interrupts you, it often means one of two things. Either they feel a stronger internal drive to speak than to listen, or they subconsciously perceive that they can take the floor without resistance. And both of these are influenced by how you present yourself in the moment, because communication is not just about what you say, it's about how you say it, your pace, your tone, your pauses, your confidence, and your timing. And one of the most common reasons people get interrupted is low signal clarity, which means their speech lacks a sense of structure and direction. For example, when someone rambles, uses too many fillers, or takes too long to get to the point, listeners can lose patience and feel justified in jumping in, not necessarily because they want to dominate, but because their brain is seeking clarity and efficiency. And when that clarity isn't provided, they create it themselves by interrupting. And another major factor is perceived confidence, because people are far less likely to interrupt someone who speaks with calm authority, steady pacing, and clear intention, while they are more likely to interrupt someone who sounds uncertain, hesitates frequently, or seems to be searching for approval mid-sentence. And this doesn't mean the content is less valuable. It means the delivery is signaling that the speaker may not hold the conversational floor strongly. And in social dynamics, perception often matters more than intention. And then there's the role of conversational pacing, because timing plays a huge role in whether someone gets interrupted or not. If you leave long gaps, trail off at the end of sentences, or use rising intonation that makes your statement sound like a question, you unintentionally signal that your turn might be over, and that creates an opening for others to step in, even if you didn't mean to yield the floor. And this is why confident communicators tend to use deliberate pauses rather than uncertain ones, because a controlled pause signals continuation, while a hesitant pause signals completion. And another layer to this is social hierarchy, because in group settings, people are constantly, even if unconsciously, assessing who has more authority or influence, and those perceived as higher status are interrupted less, while those perceived as lower status are interrupted more, not necessarily out of disrespect, but because the group dynamics allow it. And this can be influenced by many factors, including confidence, body language, past behavior, and even how others in the group respond to you. Because if you've been interrupted before and didn't address it, people learn that interrupting you is acceptable, and this creates a pattern that reinforces itself over time. And on the other side, some people interrupt not because of you, but because of them, because they may have a high urgency to express their thoughts, a habit of thinking out loud, or even a fear of forgetting what they want to say. And in these cases, the interruption is less about dominance and more about impulsivity. But regardless of the cause, the effect is the same. Your voice gets cut off, and if you don't respond in a way that reestablishes your presence, the pattern continues. So how do you fix it? And the answer is not to become aggressive or confrontational, but to strengthen the signals you send, starting with clarity, structuring your thoughts so you speak in concise, direct sentences that are easy to follow, because clarity reduces the listener's urge to interrupt. And then confidence, speaking at a steady pace, maintaining your tone, and avoiding unnecessary fillers, because this signals that you are in control of what you're saying. And then timing, being aware of how you pause and how you end your sentences, making sure your voice doesn't trail off in a way that invites interruption. And when interruptions do happen, the most effective response is often calm persistence, continuing your point without raising your voice or apologizing, or briefly acknowledging the interruption and then returning to your thought, because this communicates that you value your contribution and expect it to be heard. And over time, this shifts how people interact with you, because they adjust to the signals you consistently send. And this is the key idea. People don't just interrupt you because of who they are. They interrupt you based on how the interaction feels. And that feeling is shaped by your presence, your delivery, and your boundaries. And once you understand this, you stop seeing interruptions as random or purely personal, and start seeing them as something you can influence and change. And that shift alone gives you back a sense of control in conversations, because you realize that being heard is not just about having something valuable to say. It's about communicating it in a way that holds attention, maintains authority, and signals that your voice matters. And once you start doing that consistently, you'll notice something subtle but powerful begin to change. People interrupt you less, they listen more, and your presence in conversations becomes harder to ignore. And once you see this dynamic clearly, you can't unsee it.